Insperity presents the Small Business Advocate Show with Jim Blasingame, brought to you by FedEx, CareerBuilder.com, and Palo Alto Software. This is a copyrighted production of Small Business Network, Inc., all rights reserved.
You're listening to the man who has received so much recognition for his work on behalf of small business that he had to get a bigger mantle for his awards and a wider door for his head.
You have reached the transmitting signal for the Big Giant Head. All Big Giant circuits are busy right now. Please stay on the line.
Mr. Humble, Jim Blasingame.
Welcome back. 34 after the hour. Thank you very much for hanging out with me. Thanks for being part of my day. Always a pleasure to continue to be with you. And very excited about having our good friend Paul Conway back on the show. Paul is the president of Generation Opportunity, and that's a nonprofit organization that works is working to engage young people in their, regardless of what they do, in the whole civics process. And he's been studying that demographic. And seeing what they're up to and what they're facing and how they're feeling about the election. He's here to report to that to us today. Paul Conway, welcome back to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me back. Appreciate it.
Good to have you back. So here we are, the day before the election, and what we know from 4 years ago is that probably no group did more to, if not help Obama win, but really give him a rousing, a thumping of Senator McCain than young people last time.
Oh, you're absolutely dead on that. And I'll tell you what, I mean, it was a record level. 66% of young voters 18 to 29 backed the president in his race in 2008. And right now, the New York Times has him sitting at 53%. That alone is a news fact that the media will not report. The Gallup organization said that the president had the largest drop of any incumbent president in history with an age demographic and its young people.
All right, so there are two issues here with young people, with any age group, I guess, any group, any constituency, and that would be how many vote and then how the ones who show up to vote actually vote.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, and so that's where.
So what do we know? What do we know about the percentage of young people who are going to vote? Do we know that?
Well, it will actually vary by county, but I'll give you a great example here. Okay, in Arapahoe County, out in Colorado, everybody's talking about Colorado right now. Okay,
right. We got
Arapahoe County is one of. Yeah, well, Arapahoe County is one of 3 counties that will determine how Colorado votes. You've got about 17% of the electorate in that county that are millennials, ages 18 to 29, and I can tell you this, overwhelmingly, their views, and these are likely voters, okay? These are not just people that might think about the election. These are people who have other people before, okay, previous voting history. Mm-hmm. That their views and their attitudes comport very, very closely with our own polling, which shows that 76% of young people feel as though the lack of full-time jobs is shrinking the middle class. Only 38% think that their elected officials in Washington represent their views, and 76% indicate that they will vote. And I think when you look at the numbers, and you look at
people feel differently about Congress than they do feel about voting for their president.
You're right about that. But here's the interesting thing: those lines have actually gotten much narrower over the past 8 months. And on Friday, you had the last jobs report that came out before the election, and everyone's making a big to-do about, 7.8, 7.9, an extremely high number for young people. That unemployment number is 12%.
Well, I want to talk about that in a minute. But before we go there, I want to get back to this percentage of turnout. Come back to Arapahoe. So how many young people in the counties that you know that you've tracked? How many young people? What percentage are going to vote? Do you think?
We think it will be upwards of over 55, 58%.
Okay, so over half of young people will vote, and of those, 70-something% are unhappy with the status quo.
That's exactly right.
Which is not necessarily to say unhappy with President Obama, just the status quo, which he's part of the status quo.
Yeah, and in our polling, we don't, because we're a nonprofit, nonpartisan, we don't do the head-to-head.
Right.
People will classify it as one thing or the other.
Right.
But we do ask a huge series of questions on the economy, views on Washington. Only 26% of these folks think that economic policies from Washington are actually helping fix the issue of youth unemployment.
Right.
We did ask the question of how do you think the president's handling youth unemployment? Only 31% say he's doing a good job.
Now, and what the drop earlier, 76 to 55, that you heard about, that said wasn't reported. Tell us again what was that about?
Sure. That number is from the Gallup polling agency.
Right.
Okay. So Gallup did this survey, and they found that the president had gone from his 2008 levels, which were 66% of 18 to 29-year-olds, that his drop in support down to 53 or 54% is the largest drop that an incumbent president has ever had.
And that was for the president, dropping from 76 to 55 for the president. Very interesting.
That's exactly right.
That could make a difference tomorrow, folks. We'll take a quick break. I want Paul to dive into some of the differentials between unemployment with the young people. We know it's pretty rough, and he's going to give us some of that information and inform us a little bit more about that after this next break. 20 till. I'm Jim Blasingame. Stay with me.
Insperity presents the Small Business Advocate Show with Jim Blasingame, brought to you by FedEx, CareerBuilder.com, and Palo Alto Software. This is a copyrighted production of Small Business Network, Inc., intended for the private use of our audience. Except as otherwise provided by copyright law, all other copying, redistribution, or publication without prior written consent is prohibited. All rights reserved.